Now, let's turn to the war in Ukraine, because the UN's nuclear watchdog says its inspectors have regularly visited two sites in Ukraine which are at the centre of Russian claims that Kyiv is preparing a so-called dirty bomb. It says the inspectors will return in the coming days following a Ukrainian request. Well, Russia has not offered any evidence for its allegations, which NATO, of course, have dismissed. Meanwhile, officials in Ukraine say 7 civilians have been killed and 3 injured in Bakhmut. In the eastern Donetsk region, police have been bringing food to people sheltering there, a region which Ukrainian officials say is under constant Russian shelling. Well, speaking in Berlin just a little earlier, the European Commission chief, Ursula von der Leyen, has described the scale of destruction in Ukraine as, quote, staggering. President Zelensky said via video link that recent Russian attacks had destroyed more than a third of Ukraine's energy sector. Well, let's talk to BBC Monitoring's Russia editor, Vitaly Shevchenko, who's here in the studio with me. Vitaly, let's talk about the so-called dirty bomb. So much focus on that, and alarming, we're even talking about it.
Well, absolutely. And there are several possible reasons why Russia has been making these claims. One of them is that it's trying to justify what it's doing in Ukraine by presenting Ukraine as an irresponsible rogue state that needs to be dealt with. In the past, Russia alleged that Ukraine was preparing to invade Russia, to use biological weapons, and none of that happened.
Now, this is going to be discussed at the UN Security Council. Russia's defence minister has been talking, hasn't he, in the last 48 hours to his equivalent defence officials in the US, France, UK, Turkey, Italy.
Absolutely, and this is unprecedented. I can't recall another instance where the Russian defense minister called his opposite numbers in those countries. And the stream of such claims from Russia has been relentless, and now we're expecting them to surface at the UN Security Council. Has Russia managed to convince the world community of the fact that, as it alleges, that Ukraine is trying to detonate a dirty bomb? I don't think so, because the US, France and the UK, they've published a joint statement calling these claims transparently false and saying that they may be used to justify an escalation in Ukraine.
Let's talk about what's happening on the ground, the evacuations that continue around Kherson. Last week we were talking about the Russian military officials acknowledging the, quote, severe difficulties in terms of the military campaign. Kyiv's spy chief, interestingly, suggesting exactly otherwise.
Yes, and I found the way Russia acknowledged those difficulties unusual. They were very unusually open about them and saying that, look, we have to withdraw. Now, the Ukrainian military spy chief, Kyrylo Budanov, said, well, this isn't happening. We're not seeing any signs of withdrawal by the Russians from Kherson. So who do you believe? Obviously, both sides are trying to spin the story in a way that benefits themselves. I spoke recently to somebody who's actually in Kherson, and that person said that Russia appears to be bringing in more troops to Kherson, trying to reinforce its defenses of the city. And I was told that those Russian soldiers that are stationed in Kherson, they seem to be very relaxed, drinking beer on the embankment and smoking shisha.
Vitaly Shevchenko, thanks very much. Thanks for taking us through all of that. Now, still to